everyone. I'm back to talk to you about my second conversation with Gwyn ap. This one was very interesting because he moved on from talking to me to showing me very clear visuals. And this was I was walking in the woods. He came to me again. I felt his presence as the stag man again. And then he started to show me our past lives together. Now, I don't think he showed me all his past lives with me in this conversation. It's very much unfolded that he will show you what you need at that time, um, but not to overwhelm you. So he obviously needed to tell me these things at this point, but further on down the line, he's shown me other past lives. But in this second conversation, he begins by sort of morphing himself into a child. He's a boy of about 9 or 10 years old, and he walks beside me and he holds my hand. And he doesn't speak, he doesn't tell me anything. He's got sort of sandy hair. He's tall but quite slight. He's wearing some sort of heavy linen type, Hessian-y type smock thing, and he has sort of leg coverings that are sort of bound with sort of strips of leather, and shoes that are made out of some sort of hide. And he's holding my hand. He doesn't tell me anything at all. I can only take from that we had a past life where I was his mother or his guardian or something. I don't know, but a long time ago. Then he starts to show me the really juicy stuff, really juicy stuff. So the first past life he shows me, where I can really make some sense of it, is he shows me a vision of me, and I know it's me, even though it doesn't look like me. I, in my core, know that he is showing me myself, and I am wearing, again, very simple clothing, a sort of quite shortish, kind of skirty type thing, and a almost like a vesty type waistcoat thing that is made out of sort of a suede or a hide, and tied at the front with the sort of leather strips. And he shows me I've got long auburn hair, very long red hair, which he proceeds to tell me he prefers me with, which is charming, isn't it? Lovely. Um, and he shows me that I am kneeling by a brook, quite a wide brook, like maybe a chalk stream, something like that. And he shows people coming, men, warriors coming and giving me offerings. So bent swords, or well, swords, not bent swords, giving me swords and and pieces of metal and shields and things like that. And before they give them to me, they're bending them, they're making them unusable, and then they're handing them to me with great reverence. Now, I must be late teens, early 20s in this vision, and maybe early 20s. And I am lowering them into the water once they've gone. So clearly I'm some sort of priestess, seems the wrong word, but someone who is a conduit between the people and the gods. I remember him arriving. So I'm lowering this sword into the water. I'm on my knees and putting it in my hands and putting it very carefully down to the bottom of the water. And I'm saying words. And I turn around and look over my shoulder and I can see Gwyn. And he's arriving and he's looking like how I saw him the very first time in the woods as the Green Man of the forest. So with hair a very similar length to mine, maybe a tiny, tiny bit longer to how I've got mine now. Very, very dark, 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 dark brown or black hair. And I see him up, you know, beyond, and I can see as I turn to look at him that where I live, so between where he is and the stream that I can see, he shows me that there is like a roundhouse with a conical thatched roof and sort of like mud and limed walls and there's like a jetty made out of like round wooden poles and lashed together. So it's raised up above the ground. So I'm assuming that the river brook thing kind of floods and I can still work effectively. It's all because there's this like sort of platform that's raised up on these round stilts that are effectively trunks of young trees, I think. And then a broad walk that's high up that's made of this. And the roundhouse thing is on top of the platform. There's a place called, let me look at my notes. There's a place called Must Farm. That is an archaeological site in Norfolk, I believe. It's in Norfolk. And it's built really similarly, because obviously when he showed me this, I was really keen to find out what time this was from. And the nearest thing I could find to that setup was this Must Farm in Norfolk. Very, very similar. However, that was groups of houses, I believe. I was there on my own. I lived in the hut on my own. I made these offerings on my own. And there was very much a sense of like almost like a Vestal virginness. I was like a sacred offerings person, a well maiden, for want of a better word, although it was not a well. It was like a chalk stream type thing. And then so it was clear that I had a sacred ceremonial role and that I lived there on my own. It was very isolated, almost like a sort of hermit type life. And these people came and they gave me swords and whatever, and they bent them, and then I made these offerings, obviously to the gods or whatever. And when I'm looking into the water, there's this real sense that there's something there below the surface. Even though I can see the bottom, it's like the water feels alive, and there's a very strong female energy, almost a bit intimidating female energy in the water. So I get the feeling that the goddess or whatever it was that I was making offerings to was female, and that the warriors were coming and sort of paying their dues and thanking whoever it was, and I was the person that facilitated that. So then I look over my shoulder, I see Gwyn arriving, I see the roundhouse on the platform that I live on. It's established at that point that I have a sacred role, and that I have to remain living alone and untouched, effectively. So then Gwyn shows me that he is a man existing in this time, he is living, he and I are having a torrid affair, which has broken all the rules. And if discovered, would be really very, very serious. He then showed me a pregnancy. He showed me, he actually made me feel that I could feel that my belly was swollen and that I was heavily, heavily pregnant and could no longer hide it. And that I was sort of had to, he didn't show me what happened, so I don't know if I stepped down or if I was, sacked as a well maiden. I don't know. But it must have caused quite a big hoo-ha. I'm just looking at my notes. So from looking at from knowing the age of this must farm place, I'd say this is about 850 BC. So this is Bronze Age. This is late Bronze Age. He shows us knowing each other, being incarnated at the same time and having a past life together where we'd obviously got ourselves in quite a lot of trouble. And so that's what he showed me. So clearly, I knew him when he was a man, and I had become pregnant with a child. He didn't show me what happened to that child at all. Whether it came to be or not, no idea. So the second past life he showed me was really, really sad, actually, really sad. It was, I can tell you exactly when it was because Arthur was there. And so that again, you're talking about 850-ish AD, not BC. So you're talking about the 9th century in Britain. Both of these places were in Britain. And I was older in this. We were in our late 20s, early 30s, maybe. And I was his partner. I don't know in what capacity. I was a woman again. And I was saying goodbye to him. I knew inherently that he was going into battle, and I knew inherently that I wasn't going to see him again, that he wasn't coming back, that he was going to be killed. Now, how I knew that, whether I knew that at the time or whether he was just telling me this, I don't know. So, and it was like a long farewell. It was really sad. The feeling of sadness was really overwhelming. But what was really interesting is he showed me, he's sometimes referred to as Gwyn of the Black Face, right? And no one really knows why he was. People think, oh, maybe he, blacked his face to go into battle to look more scary and that sort of thing. He showed me why. So he showed me mixing on my hands ashes, like coal, black coal ashes, and some sort of resiny, oily stuff to make like a sticky, heavy, oily black substance. And I approached him. I'm going to show you my hands now. I approached him and I put this stuff on my hands, and he was facing me. And I took my 3 fingers and I drew them down his face like that. And it left 3 black lines on either side of his face. And it was almost like a protection spell, like a consolidation of his strength. There was a sense of ceremony to it. But as I did it, I heard him say Gwyn of the Black Face. And he showed me putting the black face on him. And again, it didn't look like me, but it was me. It was very clear. that that was me in a past life. And it was just so sad because it was really just a sense of we both knew that we were never going to see each other again. And yeah, I got to see what he called the long goodbye and feel all the feelings, which was really, really hard. So that's the vision that he gave me of our two past lives, at least two past lives together, maybe more, maybe three, because then there was the child one as well. So, we'd obviously known each other through the ages. And those of you who know the story of how he gave me these horns in Rendlesham Forest and how the antlers and how they look like the Starcar headdress. And then he asked me to go to the Age of Stonehenge exhibition at the British Museum, and how there was a Starcar headdress there. And there was such a strong connection between me and the Starcar headdress. I wonder whether that's actually a past life we had as well. And for those of you who know about the Starcar headdresses, they are 9,000 BC. So they are 11,000 years old, they think. So, we got some serious history going on here between me and Gwyn. But he also then, and during our conversation, I recorded, talked about protecting the families of the Old North. So he tells me that I'm descended from his brothers, and he calls them by their names. He calls them Caradoc and Gwalloch, or Gwalog, it's spelt, but I believe he pronounced it Gwalloch. So Caradoc and Gwalloch, but it's spelt with a G on the end, so it might be Gwalog. And he tells me that I'm descended from them, so I am his kin in this body, this incarnation. This body is genetically related to his brothers, Caradoc and Gwalloch, and he refers to himself as the bull protector of Britain. And he shows me himself with almost like horns on a helmet, like yeah. And he talks about the families of the Old North here. He tells me about Raegid and Urien of Raegid. He tells me about Outclut and Dalryta, which is now modern day Strathclyde, I believe. And so this is all post-Roman for context. This is about 100 to 200 years after the Romans have left Britain. He's telling me this body is descended from those families. And he tells me this is the time of Taliesin. I had no idea at this point who the hell Taliesin was. But it turns out that Taliesin is the recorder of living history for Urien of Raegid. So much like Merlin or Merthin was for Arthur MacAden, who I believe is the modern day is who we base our modern day King Arthur on, whose family I'm descended from. So Merthin was his bardic warrior poet. Taliesin was Urien of Raegid's bardic warrior poet. So being followed round by someone making up cool songs about how brilliant you are. We could all do with that, couldn't we? But what Gwyn wants me to know is that it's really, really important that I know their stories and learn their mistakes. So he talks about Arthur MacAden, who I believe is King Arthur. Not that he was a king, but we're not going down that rabbit hole. Not today, anyway. We may do another time. He talks about him being quick to battle, bordering on foolishness. He says he is vain with a tendency to cruelty, but also incredibly brave and skilled in the saddle and loves his host, which is, I believe, like his band of warriors and his family. Not at all how we use the word host now. That really confused me for ages. I had to go and find out what he meant. Loved his host. He was loyal. And then he talks about Urien, because Arthur was loyal to Urien as well. They were allies. So he talks about Urien of Raigad being a really honourable man, a lovely man, clever, generous, a peacemaker, who was betrayed and murdered because of jealousy. And he warns me against envious and jealous behaviour. He calls him an ally. And then he talks about Arthur MacAiden's sister, who, the only person in history who is a candidate for King Arthur is Arthur MacAiden, who has a sister called Morgan. So Morgan, Morgana, Anna is Arthur MacAiden's sister. And Morgan or Morgana means sea-born. Okay. So bearing in mind they were like a seafaring people. They had originally come over from Ireland and they got around on boats, which is how you get people coming down from Scotland and then being in Cornwall and that sort of thing. The Irish Sea was the super highway, was the motorway of the 6th century. So Morgan means seaborn, so she must have been born on a ship, I'm presuming. And he talks about Arthur's sister Morgan, but he calls her Morgan, then he calls her Morgana. So he's giving me a point of reference, I think, in modern culture for who he's talking about. Then he continues to refer to her as Anna, which is probably how she was known to family or known to him. I don't know. So he talks about Anna, and he says she was consumed with jealousy of having to give up her studies to marry, of having to acquiesce to her younger brother, Arthur, when she perceived herself to be more clever and more astute than he. She felt more deserving of the praise of her father. So I think that he's talking about Anna Morgana resenting the fact that she's a woman and that she's being used as, a pawn in a political game. I think she was married off to King Lot of Lothian, wasn't she? If that was his name, the King of Lothian, who then their descendants went on to be the Godolphin, who were all slaughtered at Carrick in North Yorkshire, which is incredibly sad. Which Gwyn actually also led me much later on to read that account, that bardic account of the Godolphin. I think that's how you pronounce it, and where they're remembering. I think it's like 300 of them, 300 men who were descended from Morgana's tribe were slaughtered at Carrick, and it destroyed them basically. The host of Lothian, and these are poems talking about the lovely attributes of the individuals who died, and remembering them, probably by another bard. I don't think we know who it was that wrote that, who recorded that, but it's incredibly sad. But it gives you a really good idea of the sort of culture that Gwyn and Arthur were living in. So this is what he's talking to me about in the second conversation, because I had no points of reference beyond childhood King Arthur stories, right? So he's talking about Morgan, and he's talking about how she resented the fact that she was a woman, basically, and she was being treated in this way, because of it, because she was more clever and she was more politically astute than her brothers, who were a bit rash by the sounds of it. Well, at least Arthur was. But he does say that she loved her brothers, especially the very youngest brother. That is, I believe, Dormangard. But she's got many brothers who have unpronounceable names, so we won't go there. I can't pronounce them. Um, and she didn't feel that Arthur deserved the level of admiration that he got from his father, and it ate her up. So it sounds like Arthur Macadon, Prince King Arthur, was a bit of a show off, and was golden boy, and she wasn't very happy about it. So again, he warns me against envy, jealousy, this sort of thing. And he wanted me to understand the dynamics, or he says, I want you to understand the relationships amongst them so you don't make the same mistakes. It's about discernment and self-awareness, learning when to act and when not to, not being eaten up by negative thoughts and emotions because they have a corrosive effect on the soul, which I thought was a wonderful way of putting it. A corrosive effect on the soul is what he said. Um, and so that's my second conversation with Gwyn ap Nuith. So he puts into context where I fit with regards to his ancestor spiritness and his guardian spiritness in this life, in this body. And he starts to talk about all the disparaging and negative aspects of my ancestors' personalities, to warn me off doing the same sort of thing. But it's interesting because, I was living quite a materialistic life then. So he's sort of encouraging me to be more self-aware, and to use my discernment and to actually strive and do work to be a better person and to deal with your shadow. And actually, really interestingly now, when I channel Arthur Macadon, he doesn't come across as how Gwyn describes him at the time in the 6th century. He doesn't come across as vain or quick to temper. He's very lofty in his language, they're proclamations. But yeah, he comes across as much wiser, now. I think, he's learned his lessons. I don't know if he has had any incarnations since that one as Arthur Macadon. I've no idea. But there's much more wisdom in Arthur Macadon when channeling him now than Gwyn gives me the impression that he had when they knew each other then. And really interesting, as a little aside, I recently did my astrological chart, and I did minor asteroids as well. And it's really, really interesting because there is a minor asteroid called Gwyn, right? Spelled exactly the same. And it sits in my 12th house, right? And those of you who know astrology, I won't need to explain this to. However, the 12th house, I've got to get this right. The 12th house is the house of karma, of the afterlife, of your spirituality, of the baggage you carry into this life, and of finding closure, right? And the asteroid Gwyn sits smack bang in the middle of that house, which is incredible. But not only that, my 12th house with my asteroid Gwyn sitting right in the middle of it is in Taurus, which is the bull. So when you look at the chart, you've got Gwyn's name right in the middle of this karmic cycle spiritual journey in my astrological chart, right, and above him, the bull symbol, which is just amazing, I think, considering what he said to me. And it's also right next to my Chiron. Now, those of you who know astrology, I won't have to explain what that is. But for you, those of you who don't, Chiron was a centaur, right? Another synchronicity. Chiron was a centaur in ancient Greece, and he was mortally, well, he was wounded, and he was a healer, and he was wounded, and the wound never healed. It wouldn't heal. So he's known as the wounded healer. So your chironic wound, right, in your chart is the wound that will never heal that you carry forward with you, right? That you need to work on. And my Chiron is right on Gwyn. So I get a real feeling that our past lives, there's unfinished business, there's almost this festering sore of this heartbreak, and is right smack bang in the middle of my past life baggage, my spiritual journey, and the bull. So you couldn't make it up. It's it's literally, I've written here that it's written in the stars. You know, if you think that your astrological chart is a map of your life when you're born, you know, this is your AA map through life. My goodness me, Gwyn is a huge part of mine and my spiritual journey. So I thought you might find that little aside interesting. I certainly found it very interesting. So I will pull some more cards. Again, I've got the Wildwood Tarot, my favorite deck for speaking to Gwyn. There we go. I don't think it's in print anymore, but I think you can buy it secondhand, but it might be more expensive because when they go out of print, they get more expensive. So, um, just if Gwyn wants to add anything about our past lives or anything like that. Oh, and he's chucked him. There you go. Look at that. Can you see that? Protection. And there's a little baby fallow deer in the stones. I think that sums up, he's looking after me in this life. That sums up what I've been talking about, basically, that he's looking after me in this life. And there's the past and the little deer. And of course he comes as a deer. So, and that's the Four of Stones. So that's the Four of Pentacles in a normal Rider-Waite tarot or whatever. And that is sort of holding on to what you've got, steadiness, steadfastness. And he says that a lot, being steadfast in the chaos, and the stones around me protecting me is a quoit, isn't it? I think they call them a quoit. So yeah, that's very, and then you've got all sorts of symbols of okay, can you see on there? Is there, you've got symbols like you have on Newgrange and things, which to me symbolizes the labyrinth, the path through life or your soul's journey. But also to me, what the Vikings call the weird, which is the threads of the Norns, but after they've woven them, it's the cloth that's woven. So if something's in the weird, it's happened, you can't change it. But if something's not in the weird yet, you can change it, which is quite interesting, I think. What's up? What else has he thrown on the floor? What else has he thrown on the floor? Oh, there you go. Yeah. So these are the three cards that have come out. Protection, which we've talked about, that he wants to protect me. Exploitation. So if you see this card, these people have got the means to support themselves, but they are not. So they've let their beehive spoil. They've got tools, but they've burnt their fields. So these are people who are, you know, who have been foolish and not been thinking in the long term. So again, I think this is quite representative of learning the lessons of our ancestors, and not doing foolish things. And the third card, this is a card he uses to represent me all the time. When he's talking to me through the cards, he always uses this card. It's the one that comes out most when he's referring to me, as because I've got two big dogs as well, and I am a Sagittarius moon. So the Archer is a really good, you know, representation of that because Sag is the Archer, but also, she's a bit of a warrior and constantly. He refers to the sort of me having to battle and things. I've gone past that phase in my life, but at the time, and the two dogs always make me laugh when they come out because when he first started coming to me to speak to me in the woods, he used to say to me, I like your hounds. And he always used to refer to them as hounds, not dogs. So whenever I see this card, he's always talking about me. And I always hear him saying, I like your hounds. I think he was a fan of dogs when he was alive. He had dogs when he was a human, so he's a lover of dogs. So there you go. He's there to protect us. He's there to help us avoid making the same foolish mistakes as our ancestors. And there's me. So interesting. And there you go. And the underneath card, struggle. And actually, if you've read my interview with Joe Hickey Hall, read it, listened to it, um, the whole process has been, transformative, but really difficult. And I did go through some really difficult times. We did as a family during this process, not because of this process, but it just heralded, a lot of stuff. During this process, we had problems with my children's school places. We had the lockdown came during this time. I was having an existential crisis, as I've mentioned before. So, but look, she's got a lantern. So, yes, there's a lot going on here, and it's bitter winter and things are tough, a bit like now, but she's she's got what she needs. She's got the light, she's got her fur hood, and she's a bit bedraggled, but she's got what she needs. And I think that's what he's telling us as well, that we've got everything we need to get through this, even though it's difficult now. And certainly that's true of me at the time. And you couldn't make this up. The next card underlying, the hooded man. And I think that that has come out so many times for us at the moment that I think Gwyn is using this card to show us that he's guiding us. And again, there's the same lantern. Look, she's got the same lantern, pretty much the same lantern. So I think he's saying, you're the plucky little wrens. It's even Christmas, Yuletide in this picture. Look as well. Look, so he's saying you're the plucky little wrens, and I'm guiding you, and I'm holding the light and the staff of wisdom. So follow me. Look, there's a door. There's a door there. There's an opportunity. There's shelter here and safety from all this chaos and cold. And there you are, battling away, carrying the light that I've given you, equipped with the protection and the guidance that I've given you to make it to safety, which is a lovely way to end the reading. And it's almost dark, so I better go. Otherwise, I'll be manifested as a dark man with burning coal eyes for you in the film. Right. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.